Before being a Dragon Ball fan, I grew up with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and right now on Verve, you can watch the Japanese original series, Kyoto Sentai Ranger, not to mention Dai Ranger and Kaku Ranger, which were adapted into seasons 1, 2, and 3 of Power Rangers. And I'm telling you right now, it's very different, but very awesome. Check it out on Verve. Try it for free, vrv.co/geekdom. Is Paragus a bad father, or is he misunderstood? We're talking, of course, about Paragus from Dragon Ball Super Broly, not the original Dragon Ball Z Paragus from the first Broly movie from back in the 90s. We're talking about the new Broly, the new Paragus in the new Broly movie. We're going to talk about the good and bad aspects of Paragus and whether or not he is a good father or a bad father, or if he's just a mix of the two. So, joining me on this video to discuss this topic, he's been on World of Geekdom and the Geekdom 101 podcast, but this is his first appearance ever on the main Geekdom 101 Dragon Ball / anime channel. I always promote smaller and growing channels. I've done it for years now, and this is another name to add to the list. Please welcome to Geekdom 101, Mayo from Morrow Media. Yo!
I'm coming up from NXT, bro.
Yes, I'm sure most of us, well, I would hope that most people got that reference. But yes, you are out of developmental and you're into the main roster.
Does that make you Vince McMahon?
I suppose I could be. Let's talk about Paragus and whether or not he's a good or bad father. You know, the movie, from Sheilai's perspective, paints him as being this bad father, but there are aspects of Paragus' character that are very interesting to me. To me, the old Paragus from Z was definitely much more of a user and an abuser. This Paragus has similarities, but he does seem to have a softer side to him. And he does care about Broly. We see that in the very first act of the film, where when he finds out that King Vegeta sent Broly into exile, he wants to immediately find Broly. He doesn't even think about even going back to Planet Vegeta. I mean, it wasn't even about revenge at that point. It was more so about his son, you know, being okay. And then as the film progresses and many, many years go by, he finds out that the planet was destroyed, but he doesn't know it was Frieza who did it. Of course, he was lied to like everybody else. And he finds out that Vegeta's, you know, Vegeta the Fourth, which is Prince Vegeta, the main Dragon Ball Z Vegeta, King Vegeta's son, is still alive, and that's where his sort of rage kicks in. But before that, he was training Broly to possibly at some point get revenge, but of course he didn't know. So it's tough to say, because he does care about Broly, but he also has a shock collar around his neck, and I don't know about you, man, but that doesn't seem to be something that parents nowadays, it doesn't seem PC to do that anymore, you know?
I mean, I think the interesting thing about, like you mentioned old Paragus and new Paragus, I think the interesting thing is that they kind of ended up at the same place with putting the collar on Broly, but their characters beforehand were a little different, and their motives for doing it were very different, because Paragus, it seemed more to, like, protect himself more than anything, as well as, like, keep him under control until they got their revenge.
That's right.
Whereas,
That's right.
When it came to, like, in the new movie, he didn't know if he would ever get his revenge, but it was to protect himself and, well, everyone, because he knew King Vegeta was right. Broly could destroy everything in the end.
Well, it really hit him during the fight with Goku and Vegeta when
Yeah.
he realized, oh my goodness, King Vegeta may have been right. This kid might end up causing a major problem and possibly destroying the planet, if not more. I mean, Broly's way beyond galaxy universe level at this point, especially when he's angry. And I always took this, you know, we see a lot of people discussing about whether or not Goku's a bad father, and people compare it. They always bring up the Goku and Gohan dichotomy in the Cell games. This is similar but much more vindictive. It's not that Paragus is trying to be that big sort of captain of the soccer team or whatever, captain of the softball team, cheerleader for Broly. He does want Broly to get revenge on Goku, or on Vegeta, excuse me, because Paragus can't do it, and Broly has the power to fight. But and he's much more vindictive than Goku and Gohan ever were. But also, like you said, and that's something that people need to really hammer home and understand, he put the shock collar on Broly. Yes, it was the wrong thing to do morally, but he knew that this kid had extremely dangerous potential, and he knew that he was a threat to all of existence around him, and that's why he did it. Could he have figured out a better method? Maybe, but let's not forget that technology on that planet was probably very sparse. There probably wasn't anything there to, to control Broly.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen Broly rage out. He saw how powerful he is. But does that make him a bad father? He's he cares about his son. I don't think he doesn't care. But I think he's kind of a very stoic and strict kind of, I don't want to say military dad. That's not right to say.
Yeah.
He's definitely not the warm and lovable father. But then again, who really is, except maybe Bardock, as far as the pure-blooded Saiyans go? Like, not even Goku seems to be as soft as Bardock when it comes to, well, that's not true. But either way, where would you put him at? Go ahead.
I think it's interesting that you brought up like comparing him to Goku earlier, because in a lot of ways they are very similar. Because I think Paragus in this sense is the definition of the road to hell is paved with good intentions, because he wanted what was best for Broly, but when his own selfish needs were brought into it, he kind of manipulated Broly in an odd way. Like, whereas Goku, he did kind of manipulate Gohan and the others, but he did it for the benefit of others, whereas Paragus did it for himself. So they kind of split off in that way. They both had the best intentions for their son. One was just more loving and was doing it for others. One did care for their son, but was doing it for revenge.
Right? And plus, Broly's a lot older than Gohan was. But again, that age does not really seem to matter in Dragon Ball. We've got Kid Goku, Kid Gohan, we've got Kid Goten and Trunks always fighting, and even Kid Broly having some altercations when he was a kid,
Broly's also like the mind of like a 5-year-old.
Yeah, he never really grew up civilized. He's a big savage.
Yeah, which is interesting because Paragus is always like, remember your manners and stuff. Like, he very much is a kid. I think Paragus is not the worst father I've ever seen in anime. But he's
Dragon
definitely,
Ball, for sure.
Yeah, he's definitely a selfish one, and I think that's why you could call him a bad father, because I think when it comes to raising a kid, if in the end you're being selfish about it, then you're not really raising the kid right. You're raising them to be like your tool, essentially.
That's exactly what Paragus is, but at the same time, he does care about Broly, because we see at the beginning of the film when he finds out he immediately, literally, in a way, kind of has a mutiny, and it wasn't like in the old Broly story where he was going to get killed and Broly saved him. He was going to try and go save Broly, and he didn't have to do that. He could have just let the kid go and maybe had another kid or something. I mean, we don't even know who his wife is. We don't know who Broly's mom is. There's a lot of unanswered questions when it comes to that family. There has to be a mom, because Broly was kind of a newborn, or at least he was very young when we see him in the movie and the beginning of the film. No, and he does weaponize him, but also I don't think he could be a completely terrible father, because unlike the old Broly, this Broly had a connection to Paragus, because when Paragus dies in the film, Broly snaps. And earlier in the movie, that's foreshadowed when he talks to Sheila and he tells her, yeah, he's not perfect, but he is my dad. Like, he is my father, and I do respect him. And it could just be the way that his dad was somewhat abusive to him. I do think his dad was abusive to him in many ways, especially when, he sliced off Ba's ear, which, again, we've seen things like that happen in real life, and we've seen stories where parents don't understand the love that we have for our pets.
I mean, Piccolo did that stuff to Gohan.
In some ways, yeah, he was very rough on him, but Piccolo's not Gohan's dad, even though a lot of the fandom thinks that he is. You know what I'm saying?
Like, when he was training him and, like, basically teaching him how to be a man in the sense, like, he very much did not let Gohan have anything nice at the beginning.
Right? No, absolutely. And then Broly's like 40 years old, dude. Or, obviously he looks like he's in his 20s, but he's a 40-something-year-old guy. And he's been with his dad the whole time. So you're right. He does kind of have the mind of a child, so to speak, in this film. But either way, I agree with you. I don't think he is a bad father, but I also think he's misunderstood. I do think that he's not the worst father. He's not as bad as the original version of Paragus from the original Dragon Ball Z Broly movie, the Takao Koyama version. But I think if he were to be resurrected, if Super continues, when it continues, if they decide to go with the story where he comes back to life at some point, I think I can totally see him kind of changing his ways. Plus, now that Broly has a girlfriend, things may go a bit different. But I always did like that. I did like the interaction between Paragus and Sheila in the movie.
Yeah, it felt very, like, not confrontational, but very much like Paragus was like, I know what's best for my son, don't you tell me what to do. And, like, he was very protective of Broly. And you mentioned how, like, Broly didn't really feel anything for Paragus in the old movie, and that's kind of because Paragus used Broly as a tool, basically from the day Broly was born. Whereas
That's right.
in this, Paragus was willing to kill a man to save Broly. Like, he killed the dude that went to the planet with them.
That's right.
Like, they jacked his clothes and everything.
They took his clothes. I thought originally they cannibalized him, but no, they killed him so they could have more food for themselves. And no, he did. I mean, he cares more about Broly than other people, and thus he does love his son. But he decides to say, hey, he's very strong. I got to control him for my own safety. And why don't we also get revenge too? You know, it did seem like he was not anywhere close to being as bad as the old Paragus, but let's just say he's got very archaic methods of raising a kid all the way until he's in his 40s. I mean, these guys were on that planet for decades, so there had to have been some kind of bond. I feel like if Broly really didn't like him, he would have killed him at some point. Like the old Broly killed him. So this new Broly, totally different character. So I'm going to leave a poll in the upper right-hand corner of the video on the card section. Vote. Is Paragus a good father, a bad father, or in between? Is he? That's going to be the third option. Is he? You know, is it a mix? And I want to know your thoughts. And of course, leave a comment down below.
We've
and
even
check
said
out
in this video that it's kind of a mix, like, because it's very open to interpretation. Like I said, like some might consider what he did to be like a decent father because he cared for his son and tried to keep him alive.
But also maybe a necessity.
Yeah, and like I said, like, he's a bad father because he was very selfish about it, even though he did all those good things for Broly. So it really depends on what your definition of a good or bad parent is.
Right? No, it is. And, I mean, based on today's standards, he did a lot of bad things. But, I mean, without question. But this is, of course, a fantasy anime. And that's just the kind... This stuff doesn't fly in the real world. But in Dragon Ball... all is forgiven. I mean, let's not forget that Goku has made friends out of people who have tried to and successfully murdered him. Not literally, but tried to murder him. Anybody can be redeemed, it seems, in this damn show. I don't know. All right, so check out Morrow Media. I'll leave a link to his channel down below, and thanks for being here.
Glad to be here.
We'll talk to y'all soon.